Ndoro. He is at one of our business briefings at Nelson Mandela University in Port Elizabeth. He's going to be talking to the Minister of Social Development Bathabile Dlamini. And today's topic is SASSA's 10th anniversary, moving South Africa forward through social security reforms and educating beneficiaries. Peter Ndoro, a very, very good morning to you and your guests.
A very good morning to Leanne, and good morning to everybody who's watching the program right across South Africa, and also the many, many countries across the continent that are tuning in on Channel 404 and DSTV. Yeah, we're in Port Elizabeth today, in fact, at the Nelson Mandela Metropolitan University Mission Vale campus, and this is where we're taking a look at SASSA, 10 years on, making a difference in people's lives. You'll hear often the talk about poverty, inequality and unemployment being the three challenges that face our people the most. And so social grants, social security and those kinds of instruments have been used by government over time to try and alleviate the most vulnerable in our society, those that are most in distress, and to assist them and to help them to, I guess, live a better life as much as they can. And it's been making a difference. One of the agencies, SASSA, has been in operation for 10 years. And we find out what that journey has been. We'll also hear from some people that have been beneficiaries and what kind of difference your taxpayer money is doing to a lot of our citizens across the country. So all of that coming up at Morning Live SABC is our Twitter handle. If you have any questions that you'd like to put forward to Minister and the guests that I'm going to introduce to you shortly, anything about SASSA, social grants, what would you like to know? Have you got suggestions perhaps? We'd love to hear your thoughts. And if you're outside the country, perhaps this is something that you might learn from us, or you can teach that you have had experiences across the continent as well. We'd love to hear from you as well. Morning Live SABC. But let's say good morning to our special guests now that are going to lead us in this conversation. I want to start with you, the Minister of Social Development, the Honourable Bathabile Dlamini. Thank you very much indeed for joining us, and welcome, Minister.
Thank you, Peter.
Next to you, we have the acting CEO of the South African Social Security Agency, SASSA, Ms. Rapahle Ramkopa. Thank you very much for joining us, and welcome to you.
Thank you, sir.
And next to you, we have Special Advisor to the Minister of Social Development, Zane Dangor. Thank you very much for joining us, and welcome to you.
Thank you. Good morning.
All right, fantastic. Okay. So, Minister, let me start with you. So we have these challenges: poverty, inequality, and unemployment. That's been a challenge and a legacy, I guess, of apartheid. And so we had to find vehicles and instruments to help our people. And I guess a lot of that has come through what you do in your department. Tell us about what you've been doing, and particularly how agencies such as SASSA have been able to contribute.
Thank you very much, Peter. Let me firstly recognize Ricky, our Deputy Minister, Bukhupane Zulu, the Speaker of the Nelson Mandela Metro, the Chief Whip, the Deputy Mayor, as well as the recipients, and also would make a very big mistake if we don't mention a few architects of SASSA. One of them is Zane. He's here with us, and Minister Zola Square, the former minister, was there when SASSA was integrated into one entity. Vusma Donsela, as well as Mr. Makiwane, who was the first CEO of SASSA, and is also here with us. There are other senior officials of the department, and will recognize others as time goes on. Firstly, I would like to say that from the Women's Charter, Freedom Charter, Harare Declaration, the Ready to Govern Conference of the ruling party, the issue of social security has been on the forefront. And why has it been in the forefront? It's because in South Africa, there is structural poverty. And it's not easy to break a structural poverty. You have to come up with a number of programs that are going to help the government fight poverty. I think we all know that when we came into power, only our people, or blacks, were getting the grant quarterly. And then whites on a monthly basis. The amount was not equal. There was a grant for children that was called a maintenance grant, which was reserved for mostly white children and a few black children. The grants were not equal. And when the grant started, they were meant to create pension for the white people that did not have a pension in their jobs. And therefore, that took us out of the whole system as blacks. Now, by 1993, only 1.5 people were grant recipients. We are now at 16 million. And from the time we took over, we have paid close to 900 billion in as far as social grants are concerned. But also one other important issue is that our country has continued to take a responsibility where agreements were made that we're going to continue paying people that were grant recipients, like some in Namibia, but we are moving towards the end of those grants. And then now we are paying 16 million. Out of that 16 million, 12 million are children. And this is a good sign because it says that we are winning in our fight to take families out of the cycle of poverty. And we have been having challenges of corruption. And we have tried in a number of ways to deal with corruption. Some of the people are arrested. Some have been asked to pay the money back. But I want to say that Zain will explain this properly. I know South Africans are going to interpret it differently. There are international standards of measuring the levels of corruption in the social security system. Unfortunately for us as South Africa, we have not reached that maximum.
Okay, so we're still doing quite well.
We are still doing quite well, but we must say that there is still corruption. I think we've explained that Cabinet took a decision to implement the grant system because of poverty.
Right.
Yeah.
All right. Okay. A great introduction, I think. And we'll unpack some of those issues in greater detail, either through you at home, through your tweets and your questions, and also this audience that's here as well. But as acting CEO, you're right at the rock face of the recipients that we've talked about, 17 million grants that are issued each month. Just give us a sense of how much that is that you're dispersing, and what kind of difference are you seeing in people's lives?
I think the SASSA 10 years has been an excellent journey, an interesting journey, and it also has been a journey with ups and downs. One thing that we have to ensure as the people who are in the coalface is that come every month, we leave beneficiaries with hope or with something in their hands. On monthly basis, in each and every community, on average, in a small community, we leave plus minus 400 million in those communities as part of and parcel of our disbursements. We've had a number of developments and challenges and sometimes even criticism from the public, but there's one thing that is for sure out there, is that come month end, SASSA grants are paid, and we have done that with excellence, and we have never had hiccups in terms of ensuring that people are getting paid. We've also had some footprints that we have had to expand. I'm proud to say, as SASSA today, we can tell you that within each and every community, within the 40-kilometer radius of each and every community, you'll find a SASSA footprint, whether in the form of an office or a pay point or a service point, but we are there in the communities. We have infrastructure that we have ensured that people don't have to travel long distances to come for our service. And ours is to make sure that if we are dealing with poor people, they don't have to spend a lot of money that we give them to come to us. So we have excellent footprint. And in the 10 years, as we were developing SASSA, I must emphasize that the work of SASSA is not to create jobs, but indirectly, through our services, we have been able to stimulate the market economy out there. We've been able also through SASSA directly, in terms of employment. When SASSA was started, we only had 6,000 employees. Today we are sitting with plus minus 10,000 employees out there, which are employed by SASSA directly. In addition, through our ICT and automation, we have plus minus 1,000 employees. And through the payment providers, we have another additional 4,000 that are being employed out there. So we have been directly or indirectly impacting in terms of the job market. Okay. But if you were to go to a SASSA pay point on any given payday, you would realize the way we've been stimulating the economy and the growth in the different areas and the opportunities that have been created by SASSA being there at the community. Okay. In terms of administrative, we've been striving for administrative excellence. You can imagine taking departments from provincial departments and consolidating them into one, but also changing the mindset of the employees to say you are no longer independent and federal officials, you are part and parcel of one institution, and integrating all the systems into one. So that has been also an interesting journey that we have had to do in order to ensure that there's excellence and the same beneficiary experience as we go into the communities. Okay. And
I'm going to move on because I know there's a lot to talk about, but we've got a couple of hours to unpack it all. So I think that's a good starting point, and I do want to look forward to hearing the rest of your thoughts. But just before the break, if I could ask you, Zane, maybe to contextualize this whole social security, social grant system. There's a whole world out there that face similar issues. What approach did we take? You've been recognized as one of the architects. And in the designing of this, what did you have in mind? And where are we now, particularly as we recognize 10 years of SASSA?
Thank you, Peter. Maybe to sketch out that over the ages, people have always found ways of looking after each other. I think, there's many philosophers who talk about the fact that the natural capabilities of people are to look after each other, to take care of those who can't take care of themselves. What social security has done is taken a role that society or communities has played and given it to the state. So essentially that form of solidarity that took place within the families, within communities, is now organized through the state, through the tax system. So the solidarity is done by South Africans who contribute through their taxes to the state. The state then, on behalf of South Africans, acts in solidarity with the rest of South Africans to distribute to those who cannot look after themselves. And I think that is essential. It's not something new. It's something that's been done over the ages. And as societies have modernized and states have modernized, social security through the state has modernized. So it's been quite easy for us in the sense that when a new constitution was drafted, the drafters of the constitution were explicit in stating that the state must, not the state may, the state must look after those who cannot look after themselves. So social assistance is something that we are duty-bound to provide. And essentially, the people that we need to provide to are those who are inactive, so they cannot enter the labor market either because of their age or because of illness. So essentially, who we provide social assistance to are children, people who are disabled, and the elderly. So the children cannot enter the labor market because they're too young. Elderly, they come to the end of their working age and need support, and obviously the disabled. So essentially, this is not a dole, it is a social assistance. It provides people with the bare minimum, and that's what we call the first tier of our social security system. So society acting in solidarity with each other through the state, through their tax systems, providing to those who cannot provide for themselves. So as a governing party and as government, it's been easy. We take our lead from the Constitution and make sure that we comply. And over the years, over the 10 years, starting from a very low base, which was very racialized, as the ministers spoke about, and making sure that all those who qualify get into the system. What we're looking at is to make sure that we close that gap even further. So issues that we're looking at in terms of the first tier, which is social assistance, is looking at universalizing the child support grant so that no child gets left behind. And similarly for the state old age pension, to make sure that no older person gets left behind. The other issues that we need to look at is also social insurance, which is the second and third tiers of the social security system, is that people who work and due to issues of either illness or accidents, get injured and can no longer work. So you have your UIF that kicks in and other forms of social insurance. And then also to look at how do we ensure that even those who've worked all their lives do not retire into poverty, and then therefore have a safety net outside of the state old age pension, but through savings that is actually pooled, again in a solidaristic manner, so that people can actually retire without fearing that they're going to fall into poverty. So that's where we're going to, and that's one of the big discussions that we
will unpack that. Unfortunately, I've got to go to a break, but I think you've mentioned something quite important, because sometimes I think people think that the social grants are the be-all and end-all of the social security system, but there are different legs, and they're all meant to work together to provide the security for our people. And we'll unpack that straight after this as well. At Morning Live SABC, that's our Twitter handle. Please, we want to hear from you. What contributions do you want to make? What questions would you like to raise? What suggestions would you like to make? We'd love to hear all of that after this. Stay with us.